Thank you for being here at the regular board meeting for the Vail School District. First thing I'd like to do is call the meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. And then I'd ask that you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and get moving on our agenda. The first item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Consideration of approving the minutes from the regular governing board meeting on July 23rd, 2024 as presented. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve as presented.
Mr. Buster moves.
I'll second.
And Mrs. Anderson seconds. I'll go ahead and call for the question. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Next item on the agenda is general functions, staff, student, and community recognitions. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Tippett, members of the board. Thank you, Mr. Breen. We have a few, we don't have any special announcements, but we do have some recognitions this evening. First up is Mrs. Margaret Stewart, followed by Miss Heather Stow.
Mr. Kerr, I wanted to thank you for allowing me to recognize these people today. Typically, when we get to middle school, PTAs are hard to keep running. And we had a gentleman in our community, a grandfather, who came to me and said, "We are going to get you a PTA," and by golly, he did. And his name is Frank Hecht. And I want to appreciate him for just not letting me kind of slide back on that. And then I wanted to thank you for supporting a couple of programs on campus and a couple of people. The first one is our web group. And if you have never been into a web activity, then you should show up one Friday before school starts and see all those sixth graders who are so excited to be at middle school. And we show them around and they meet their mentors and they come on Monday and they're just not nervous. And the people that support that at our school are Bridget Evans and Mary Ann Steer. And this last week, Friday, they had their web sixth grade only dance. And if you would like, I'll send you the video of them doing something that is a shark dance. Not really familiar with it, but you go like that. And then the longest conga line around the courtyard that you've ever seen. And they were just having a ball. They were so excited. I wanted to recognize Brianne. Brianne Bray. She helps me in the summer scheduling all of our students. We schedule them all by hand. Takes us about 3 or 4 days, but we get everybody in the right place. And sometimes we have to start over, but we get it done. And she's the one that helps me get it done. And then also I wanted to really thank you for the addition of the Dean of Students at our school. We have such a strong leadership team with Kara Evans and our new assistant principal, Brett Batty, that we've actually been able to just put fewer Band-Aids on things and really try to work towards being proactive and really strengthening our PBIS. So thank you for that. And then also this year, we're doing an 8th grade academy. And in 8th grade academy, we try to make it look a little like high school. So they have some passing periods. We have honors classes for science, math, and also for ELA. And we call it the Honors Academy. They get to a special courtyard and a nighttime dance. And I really appreciate you supporting those programs that we do to make sure that our kids get what they want and what they need. So the kids are just feeling pretty good about themselves. And then finally, I wanted to recognize Karen Hall, our 8th grade social studies teacher, who did an in-service at the recent all-staff day. And as Mr. Cruz said today to us, it takes a lot to stand up in front of your peers and teach. And I appreciate her doing that. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mrs. Stewart. Mrs. Stow, followed by Ms. Fargo.
Good evening, President Pratt, Mr. Cruz, members of the board. I just wanted to take a second, first of all, to recognize the Community Connections and Student Supports team for welcoming and encouraging manner in which they've supported our volunteer coordinators, wellness coordinators, student service coordinators, check and get coordinators, and counselors as the school year has begun. Meetings have been hosted where a common vision has been set, The team has been out and about every day, visiting our staff at sites, coaching folks where they need, bringing light to their gifts and talents, and bringing support and training where it is needed. I also wanted to recognize our rock stars of the quarter. Each quarter, our team chooses one staff member that they support to recognize who is simply going above and beyond in their role. And I'd like to share a bit about each of them with you this evening. Emily Sapala, our new PBIS coordinator, chose Tanya Connolly. She is the newly appointed PBIS coordinator at Vail Academy. And Tanya's outstanding commitment to her new role embodies a true rock star. Her willingness to embrace new challenges and her thoughtful care for each staff member makes a world of difference. The dedication and heart she poured into Vail Academy's Welcome Back Week was simply remarkable, as is she. Then we have Trina Lakin, who Peggy Benson Runyon is highlighting as our wellness coordinator rock star. She consistently helps to support and advocate for wellness in our district. She has a passion for wellness initiatives and brainstorms them 24/7. She said she texts Peggy like 7 o'clock at night with these ideas. She's so passionate about her role. She is what we need to lift wellness in our district. We can't wait to see the work that she does this year. And then they also wanted to recognize all of our volunteer coordinators. We've been transitioning to Red Rover, which is our new HR software for applications. Our volunteer applications run through there as well. So it's taken a lot of resilience. It's still a work in progress, but our volunteer coordinators are passionate about having volunteers in their campus and continue to work through a few bumps in the road, kind of having one foot in each software program right now, but their dedication, focus, and tremendous heart in their role has been inspiring. And Peggy's just been an incredible support to them in making that transition. I'd like to acknowledge Samantha Wooten as a volunteer coordinator. Ginny Graves shared that she's recognizing her as a support system for the volunteers that serve in our Check and Connect mentoring program. She goes above and beyond her role. She's constantly communicating via email, newsletter, and in person to reach her volunteer mentors in multiple ways. And she just goes above and beyond to make them feel included and valued at her site. Amanda Cook highlighted Gail Morrison. She is the lead counselor at Empire High School. That team has undergone a remarkable transformation this year, especially with hiring a 4th counselor. She's just demonstrating exceptional leadership, and she's successfully onboarded her new team members, providing clear direction and support. It's inspiring to watch Gail's dedication and pride as she guides her team to new heights. And then finally, our team wanted to recognize Stephanie Sorensen Scaletti and Paige Smith from Aramark. They go above and beyond with making people feel special. We just had our Vail Pride Day committee meeting. Peggy asked them, can you please do something, a little bit of dessert, a little bit of appetizer? And they brought it in, and it was the most beautiful charcuterie board that we have ever seen. I knew Nolan was taking pictures of it. I think Cindy Peterson took pictures of it. I mean, it was beautiful. And so they just went above and beyond to make our Vail Pride Day committee feel valued. They told us how much they value the event, and they wanted to take the time to pour into the committee. So we just wanted to take the time to thank them as well for partnering with us just to build value into the people who serve in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Stout. Mrs. Vargo, followed by Ms. Villalobos.
Good evening, President Tippett, my governing board members, and Mr. Kruth. I would like to recognize our kindergarten team, Judy Halverson, Laura Irwin, Bridget Fernandez, Ningying Lee, Tiffany Hodgson, Teresa Brun Murillo, Elizabeth Mariscalco, and Coco Chien for working together and supporting our kindergartners and each other and effectively communicating with our parents, along with the help of our new inclusion teachers. We have 2 new this year, Emily Mokricki and Cheryl Lane, and our behavior specialist, Marcela Rodriguez. I appreciate their collaboration with the teams, already meeting and communicating with our parents and doing so for the success of our kinders. I'd also like to recognize all of our Mesquite teachers for attending and participating in our first blast to kick off our school year on the 2nd Friday of the school year. And then like to also recognize our new STC, Kayla Sampson, who is learning her role very quickly and doing so with such a can-do and positive attitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Vargo. Ms. Villalobos, followed by Mr. Walco. We should have done this by height order and not by alphabet.
Good evening, Ms. President Tippett, the governing board, and Mr. Caruth. I'd like to start by congratulating Noelle Craver, a fifth grade teacher at Cottonwood, who's earned a top 10 semifinalist spot in AEF's Arizona Teacher of the Year for 2025. Noelle is an incredible person and educator who invests her whole heart into her students and team, and those who are lucky enough to work alongside her know full well that she is a credit to our profession and strives for excellence with her students each day. I'd also like to thank Abigail Cardenas, who has beautifully transitioned into the role of behavior specialist, thanks to her support by Terry Akers, who's supervising her BCBA hours and offering coaching and guidance as she learns the new role. Ms. Cardenas is doing a fantastic job in this critical role and has the support of two highly effective staff members on our campus, Mr. Dan Lyons and Ms. Lisa Purcell. These three individuals provide targeted behavioral support to our staff to enable them to meet the needs of our students and accomplish our top priority, ensuring a quality education. To Jennifer Bliss and Jim Matsushino for starting a band and orchestra performing arts program during the school day for our fifth grade students. The aim of this program is to build a strong foundation of instrument knowledge before students hit middle school performing arts. Thanks to Jim and Jennifer's goal to make this an accessible program for our students, we have about 80 students who've jumped at the chance to learn an instrument, which is a great increase in our participation. And then thank you to all of our club leaders at Cottonwood. We're offering about 15 staff-sponsored clubs, highlighting a wide variety of interests, anything from math clubs to hiking and exploring. We had over 200 students sign up to participate in an after-school club, and we're able to fulfill our promise that every student who signed up to participate in a club would get at least one of their selection. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walco, followed by Mr. Widosh.
I should have done this.
I just was thinking that myself.
Members of the board, Superintendent Caruth, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'd like to take the time to recognize Sarah Bates, Jean Peglow, and community programs for their tremendous effort they put into getting Hope Haven off the ground in an amazingly short amount of time. Hope Haven is already starting to meet the needs of some of our parenting students right now, and it's made a world of difference for those students. You see hope living up to the name, hope being restored. It's a second chance, a final chance for some parenting students that had lost hope. So thank you all. Thank you, Sarah. Also, thank you to American Legion Post 109 under the command of Roosevelt McKnight, who with the Legion's generous donation of $500 to Hope Haven, we've partnered with them. Commander McKnight has recently taken over in that position. Our security guard, Jacob Hummer, helped facilitate that relationship as he's a Legion member as well, and sits on our site council. Commander McKnight joined us last year and has been eager to jump in and do everything he can to support our community and our schools. So we're grateful for his time and leading the Legion to help donate. So we also want to acknowledge Rachel Mullins for her incredible work over the summer and spearheading training and resources for implementation of mindful practices at Pantano. It's part of our trauma-informed practices and under character education as well, and just helps with emotional regulation. The time that she put into building modules and then training all of our staff for implementation has been phenomenal. I also want to send a sincere thank you to Elaine Murphy, who has invested in all of our Pantano staff, pre-service training on topics of artificial intelligence and advanced Schoology management. And finally, special thanks to Lauren Celine of Pima County Sheriff's Department, who invested an incredible amount of time partnering with myself, though she's not the SRO for Pantano. Just working collaboratively, law enforcement and school together. It's just been an amazing relationship. So worthy of recognition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walco. Mr. Widosh, followed by Mrs. Wood.
Good evening, President Tippett, Mr. Caruth, and members of the governing board. The beginning of the school year is one of the most exciting times for students and staff alike. Each and every staff member at my site and across our district goes the extra mile to support students, families, and each other to get the year going. However, as I've rediscovered being back at the elementary level from the high school level, I'm especially humbled and grateful and appreciative for the effort that our kindergarten teachers put in. to make sure each and every child, some of them as young as the age of 4, feel welcome, safe, and prepared to embark on the journey that is school. So I'd like to recognize my kindergarten teachers, Andrea Carlton, Teresa Border, Shannon Christie, Anna Diaz, and Misty Prober, for their exemplary support of our newest students and families. They are supported by their awesome parapros, Liza Campos, Cam Gibson, Rebecca Gonzalez, Gloria Quintana, and Rebecca Van Europe. As a parent only a year removed from having a kindergartner, and someone who will experience this again in a couple of years, the extra level of care and customer service that our kindergarten team gives to each and every new student and parent is truly remarkable. They replace anxiety and uncertainty with a focus on relationship building and kindness. The new year is exciting and challenging for all students, but from my opinion, at least, none more than kindergartners. So the care of families in the first couple of weeks of school is truly inspirational. So I just wanted to make sure I really recognize that team. Secondly, I would like to recognize Renee Duffin, a new teacher at Sonita Valley. She served with distinction with Diane over at Mesquite as an inclusion specialist and has come to Sonita Valley to take over our Ventana program, which is a program that supports students with significant emotional disabilities and behavioral needs. And she has just done an outstanding job. Sonita Valley previously only hosted 3rd through 5th grade, but now at our Ventana program is K-5. So she's come to a new program with more students, with more challenges, but has met the challenge of this position and the new dynamics with gratitude, professionalism, organization, and an unstoppable desire to connect with her students and her families. So with the support of her paraprofessionals, who are both new as well, Forrest Kopp and Courtney Colley, they've already created just an excellent classroom culture, founded on a set of values to foster each and every student's independence. And their hope and their eventual, hopefully, their exit into the general education curriculum. We are thrilled that Renee is a Mustang and really grateful for how she's stepped up and supported our program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woodosh. Mrs. Wood, thank you for balancing us out this evening.
President Tippett, Superintendent Caruth, and Governing Board members, I would like to recognize our special education staff that supported students during our extended school year program. Our extended school year is something that we're required to do, but in Vail, we go above and beyond, and we want to ensure that students are throughout the summer. These staff members were Michelle Carlotis, Christina Hernandez, Tori Masso Hernandez, Shannon Jelly, Renee Duffin, Selena Hazlitt, and Jamie Tornator. The program was under the direction of Abby Countryman, who did a wonderful job of pulling it all together this summer. Next, I would like to thank Ethan Hurley and Michelle Kuros for their hard work in securing a little extra funding. About 2 years ago, they applied for a different grant that would allow us to purchase vehicles for our Ventana program that Mr. Woodosh just recognized. It did take over 2 years for those vehicles to be delivered, but they are here and they are beautiful. And this really allows us to get our students off campus. They work really hard in learning specific skills in the classroom, but it allows us to take them into the community and actually practice those skills and make sure that they're generalizing it in a different environment. We've seen a huge success when we're able to do this. So through Ethan and Michelle's hard work, we now have a greater ability to do that with our students. And finally, I'd just like to thank all of the staff members in the special education department. They've welcomed many new families at the beginning of the school year. And oftentimes these transitions can be difficult. They're challenging for some of our students to be in a new environment, but they've worked really hard to make sure that there's supports in place and that all of our kids are experiencing a really smooth start to the school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. Just want to, as far as district-wide recognitions go, also recognize Noelle Graber at Cottonwood in her 5th grade role there as being a top 10 teacher ambassador of the year. And note that that is out of 625 highly selective applications that she made that cut. So it's really a testament to her background and work to make that select group. Excited to see where that goes. The final selection won't be made until about mid-October. So we'll keep you posted on that. Also, 2 weeks ago yesterday, we conducted our all-staff welcome back gathering at the U of A. Vail took over U of A, and morning started in Centennial Hall, as you all know. And then we did something new in the afternoon and ran our own professional development sessions at various locations on campus, where over 70 of our own staff, not just teachers, but staff, were presenters, and it was incredibly rich. So I just want to simply acknowledge, in particular, the people who are a part of the all-staff planning committee. As Mrs. Peterson has noted, we're not professional, what did you call us? Conference planners, that's right. But I'm not sure you would have known that by your experience there that day. It was very professionally laid out. Details were nailed, just looked really good, rich programming. And I also want to recognize and thank our staff who stepped forward and took the risk to present in front of their peers and share their expertise. And seeing not only the transformation in those that they presented to, but truly the transformation in those who took that risk to do that has been worth the effort in spades. That's all we have for staff student recognitions this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Kruth. Next item on the agenda is call to the public. At this time, the board may consider and discuss comments and concerns from the public. Is there anybody wishing to address the governing board tonight? Not seeing any, we'll go ahead and move forward to correspondence and reports. Mr. Kruth?
Just a quick superintendent's note, I would say, is to save the date. The Vail Family Connections Day is set for Saturday, September 14th at Micah Mountain High School, and it's a collaboration, as you know, with our faith community and our religious leaders that we meet with about quarterly. And the planning is really good for that as well. Rich opportunities for our families to learn, grow, and play together at that event. So just to save the date.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is board reports. Do any board members have a report that they'd like to give at this time? Mrs. Pratt?
I just want to send a quick thank you for all those who were involved in the planning for All Staff Day. I loved it. I had a great day. I wasn't planning on staying for the classes, but they were so good. I ended up staying for the duration of them. Ms. Anderson and I went around and kind of popped into like 5 or 6 classes and then stayed for the second one, the whole one. And they were amazing, well done quality classes. And I just loved that they were taught by Vail employees. I just loved that. I also want to thank Kendra Santucci for the great videos that she made for the presentation in the morning. I loved all the speakers. I loved the videos. My favorite was the video of Miss Peterson and her friend in the district office. It was just, they were all just great. So thank you for all the hard work.
Any other board reports at this time? Mr. Buster?
Over the past several months, I had the privilege of serving the Arizona School Board Association's Executive Director Search Committee. I worked alongside high-level executives, including the ASB President, President-elect, Secretary Treasurer, and Chief Executive Officers. Our committee intentionally ensured efficiency and focused decision-making. Included were individuals with relevant experience, business knowledge to provide valuable insights. This collaborative effort aimed to identify and select the most qualified candidates for the ASB Board of Directors to choose the new executive director. Although I am not at liberty to share the name of the new executive director, I assure you that the chosen professional individual will effectively lead and advance the organization's people, mission, membership, and its goals. Many thanks to our Vail Unified School District Governing Board for their confidence in my ability to represent our school district in this capacity, and to Mr. Chris King, co-chair of Pima County, for allowing me the opportunity to participate in this monumental, important event. Together, we ensured that the leading school board organization in Arizona is well positioned for a successful, sustained, and resilient future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buster. Any other reports? Mrs.
I'll just
Anderson.
be real quick. Just turn it on. I just am just grateful for just teachers in general. I have been to quite a few as a parent, just as things are getting up and going with the school year, and just the time that they give to our kids. And my kids right now genuinely love all of their teachers, and that's such a and they're both in high school, and so that feels good. And so just in general, thank you to the staff and especially the teachers right now as they're getting things set, and things are moving along, but I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. I'd just like to give repeat Mrs. Pratt's gratitude for the efforts that were put into planning all staff and making it an event that had quite a bit of value for our organization and for professional development, which is key to having a well-trained and skilled staff. I had the chance to pop into just a few of the presentations that happened. I apologize to the teachers who I probably gave a little heart attack to through the door, but I appreciate them just not skipping a beat and being willing to have a board member come sit in and participate in the learning and the activities that they had planned. I would like to report that there were far too many employees in the retirement class. I, in fact, demanded a few people leave. Just kidding. But a complicated process, and it's actually a really good idea for HR to take the time to put a class together for our employees so that they can understand it. So, thank you to everybody who did that. So we'll go ahead and move on in our agenda to the consent agenda. At this time, all items listed below are consent matters and will be considered by one motion. At this time, there will be no discussion of consent items. Any board member may remove an item from the consent agenda by request. All items not accepted and approved as part of the consent agenda will be considered individually. Do any board members wish to pull an item from the consent agenda tonight? Not seeing any, we'll go ahead and ask Mr. Kruth to make a recommendation.
Thank you, President Tippett. Members of the board, it's recommended that the Vail Unified School District Board approve all items on the consent agenda as presented.
Accept a motion.
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Seconded.
Mr. King moves and Mr. Buster seconds. I'll go ahead and call for the question. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Next item on the agenda is new business. And we have an inform item, an enrollment update. This is actually one of my favorite things to talk about. Start of the school year.
Thank you, President Tippett, members of the board. It is the time of the year when the dust is settled on what our enrollment looks like. The 10-day window where if students aren't showing up, we know they're out of the system, and those that are joining us are all in the seats already. So we have a good picture of where we are. So Mr. Hurley has been actively taking deep dives into what that looks like and has a presentation for us. Mr. Hurley.
Those of you that were at the leadership meeting this morning are not going to be surprised that I'm going to struggle a little bit with technology, but once I get there, so okay. Just regular session. All right, I'm ready. Almost. Once it goes. President Tippett, members of the board, Mr. Kruth, thank you for your patience. I told Ellie Marshall I was really aware of how great the app was on All Staff Day when I showed someone how to use it. That meant it was really user friendly. I knew how to find the map. I love doing the attendance too. It's fun. The enrollment is fun. It's what we're based on. It's what we're built on. It's how we try to fund our schools and try to balance things. And it's something that if we don't put quite a bit of time and effort into, we can be wrong. And when we're wrong, kids suffer and teachers suffer and principals suffer and budget suffers. So I'm gonna run through a couple fun things with you. just real quick, good news, we're up about 264 students from where we were last year. There's lots of times that we can run numbers. We run numbers in January to do our budgets, but I like to do numbers now after the 10-day drop, because history says our 10-day drop number is about what our January number is. We lose some high school kids, we grow some elementary school kids, but literally last year we were within 2 kids on the 10th day as we were on January 31st. So it's a pretty good indication of where we are. And anything we do to project forward, we're only using post-COVID stuff. Before COVID was just a different world. Those 2 years of COVID were a mess. So it's a little bit grayer and murkier than we'd like because we only have a couple of years of good data. But if we apply last year's growth between the 10th and drop between the 10th and January, we're currently on pace to be over by about 96 students, which is great news. It's good news because it allows us to do some good things. When we saw that Acacia was way overbooked for kindergartners, we were able to get them another teacher. We were able to buy a couple extra bus drivers. We were able to get a couple parapros here and there. So when there's a little bit extra than we thought was coming, it allows us to address some needs at school without having to go to a school that may be under and say, hey, give us a teacher back. We gave you too many. We're able to just leave those there. And since we're over, it was really good. It's tough. We're not sure how we'll be in January, but based on the past, it looks like we're going to be good. The lights are going to stay on. We'll be able to pay our bills. So that's the good news. Something that comes up and people ask all the time, out of district students, and that includes our staff children, is running about 8.1%. Last year, it was about 7.9. So it's really not that different. We have some grade levels at 12% and some that are more 5 and 6. And that just shows it really is as there's seats left on the airplane. When there's a bunch of room, we bring in a bunch of kids. When there's not, we really can't. So based on our numbers, it looks like we probably could live in a world of about 10%. I know in the past we were at 10% for several years. And so I think, especially with the addition of Squirrel Creek, 10% is a realistic number. And as you know from the airplane analogy, once the plane's in the air, it kind of costs the same, whether there's 20 empty seats or all the seats are full. So filling our seats with kids that want to be here would be a good thing. So it's something we're working on all the time. Quick little graph that's interesting to show. While we are growing, you can kind of see that it's dropped a little bit each the last couple of years. It looks a little concerning, but I will tell you over the last decade, our average year-over-year growth at this time is 270 kids. So it's really kind of about what we do. We've been very fortunate that they keep building houses out here. As long as they keep building houses, we keep getting new people. I had a fun conversation with Mrs. Bates that reminded me, just because you start with 100 and end with 100 doesn't mean the same 100 were there. 10 may have moved in and 10 may have moved in out, and there's a lot of work in between making those things happen. But the overall number seems to be that we add around 270, 300 kids per year. We'd like to make sure that ticks up. It's concerning us that it's dropping a little bit, but those are things we can address, and we'll address with marketing and advertising and trying to make some good things happen. Some other interesting information. This is our second biggest kindergarten class ever. The biggest one was the year after COVID. Remember when no one sent their kindergartners during the first year of COVID? They all sent the next year. We went from like 830 kids to 950 in 1 year. Our principals are living with that bubble of kids right now. They're in 3rd grade. So there's a lot of schools with 100 4th graders and 130 3rd graders and 100 2nd graders. So they keep adding, these principals have to keep adding one more teacher as those kids move through. And they will just keep moving through on their way up. But this is a good sign. We're up 30 from last year. And so if we can keep ticking up on kinders, that would be great. Cohort growth is an interesting thing. So cohort growth is, on this date last year, how many kinders were there versus how many 1st graders did they turn into? How many 6th graders were there versus how many 7th graders? And at every grade level, we're growing. Every grade, no one's going backwards. So we keep bringing kids into the system. There's an asterisk on high school because the average is 33. But really there's about, so that math is about 130 something, and 112 of them are between 8th and 9th grade. So we have a massive influx of kids between 8th and 9th grade. And then the ones that are here in 8th and 9th grade pretty much stay the same. It's really single digit changes in 10th, 11th, and 12th. There's a big jump. We're going to talk about what the reason for that big jump is. It's not all out of district open enrollment. A lot of those are 8th grade kids that lived in our district and chose to go somewhere else and came back here for high school. So that's something we can talk about in just a little bit. Another interesting thing to think about and wrap your head around is we have about 385 more 12th graders than kindergartners. Last year we had 321. The year before that we had 220. And in the 3 years before COVID, we were like 118. And I'll show you in just a second, but what that means is that's just a big group So we have to grow 385 kids next year just to stay flat. So we need 2.6% growth to grow nothing. Because we're just moving out 1,300 kids and bringing in 950 kids, 915 kids like that. So what that kind of looks like is this. We actually grew last year in each of our cohorts by 557 students. But the kids that we graduated were 293 more than the kindergartners we brought in. So our real actual growth net total was 264 students. But you can see that negative between the kids graduating and the kids coming in is hard to overcome. But part of that is just that cohort growth. There are 30 more of them in second grade, and then 30 more of them in third grade, and 30 more in fourth grade, and it just keeps piling on and piling on and piling on. But it's just something we didn't used to have. 10 years ago, we graduated almost the exact same number of seniors as we had kindergartners come in. So that's just one of the things about growth and a reality that we have to overcome. One more real quick. The other thing is growth sounds great at a district level, but at a site, it's really different, right? So we can say, oh, it seems like things are leveling out pretty good. And then Jeff Park will tell you there's 120 more kids at Endrata than there were last year. And Ken Borges will tell you there's 55 more kids at Desert Willow than there were last year. So there are 7 schools that are up more than 20 students from last year. There are 2 schools that shrank by more than 20, and then everyone else is kind of within 20. And the summary of it, one is Endrata Headspace because they're growing. The other is just where their house is being built. Neighborhoods that have houses being built are continually growing. So we had an example of Desert Willow. Desert Willow grew 45 kids last year from the first day of school till Christmas. And there were schools that shrank from the first day of school to Christmas because they kept building houses in La Estancia. So we're building a school in the right place. That's the good news because they're building a bunch of houses out there. But when we say growth, some of the principals in the room say, yeah, it's about the same as it was. And some think, oh my gosh, I'm overloaded with kids. And some say, I wish I could get more kids because there's no kids. The Corona area is a tough area. There's not a lot of growth out there. There's not a lot of new houses out there. So I'm sure those principals would like to have some more students, but it's kind of hard to get them there. Last one, then I'll ask you, let you ask some questions. Takeaways, kind of the takeaways is we need over 350 kids every year now just to stay flat. So that's kind of a scary, daunting thing for us. Places where there's neighborhoods growing, where there's rooftops going up, are places where we're seeing enrollment growth. And to be honest with you, our neighborhoods that are aging are seeing a whole different problem where they're not really seeing enrollment growth, they're seeing turnover. They're seeing one house family, give that house to another family, give that house to another family. So lots more mobility in those neighborhoods. So there's not real growth, but there's a bunch of new families coming and going and getting reintroduced and reacclimated and those things. The other big reality is just that we live in an educational marketplace now. Okay, the days of everyone just walks to their nearest school are gone. And one of the things I take away is when I looked at that growth, the average growth of 8th grade to 9th grade, that 112 kids, about 70 of them are those brand new 8th graders, brand new 9th graders who lived in our district. So there's about 70 kids who are right now, historically, sitting in 8th grade in our district, but going somewhere other than Vail and will want to come back for 9th grade. So it just got us thinking about trying to market to our home turf, trying to market to our own neighborhoods, to our own communities with the great schools we have, that we have Chinese immersion here and Spanish immersion there and a K-12 here and a K-8 there. And there's lots of choices and lots of great things here. I think historically we've kind of thought about advertising and marketing to people outside of us, trying to draw them in. But for my money, I'd just as soon have 70 more kids from Vail take seats than try to find 70 people from outside of Vail to come in. So if we can do some work to try to get them to stay, that would be great. And then when there is space available, open enrollment is still a great thing. So Mr. Whittosh there has done a great job. 2 years in a row, his kinder and first grade are about 18% open enrollment. And what that allows him to do is have that extra teacher, have the level of services and programs and things that he wants to do, so that he doesn't become a shrinking school that doesn't have advanced math and STEM and all those great things. Empire High School in the last 2 years has taken open enrollment really for the first time in about a decade. And Ms. Donaldson had to choose, should I cut programs, cut teachers and scale back, or can I bring in 20 more students from outside of the district? So it's a nice lever to use when you're trying to get up to a certain number to make sure that you can keep the programs and teachers that we have on campus. That's all I have. You got any questions for me?
This is an informal item. Any comments or questions? Mr. Key.
Yes, earlier you said, thank you, President Tippett. Earlier you said there was an 8.1% over the 7.9%.
Yep.
So what is that in like real numbers?
So every, President Tippett, members of the board, every percent is about 100 students. So every 1/10% is 13 students. So it's maybe 25, 26 students is the difference.
And just to pull on that a little bit more, one thing we're seeing that is different now, I would say in the last 5-10 years, our out-of-district open enrollment has been as high as 15% in years past and as low as 2 or 3%, depending upon space available. With the expansion of school choice, which is great for parents, we're seeing more of our own families make those choices, and that's okay. But it's just what we want to do is make sure that we remain a viable and hopefully the first choice for families to consider when they're looking to provide their students, their children education. So I would say while our out-of-district open enrollment is about 8.1%, I bet you we have close to that number who live in our school district who are choosing a different education option for them, whether that's private school, another charter school, or ESAs.
One more thing I'd add, I'm sorry, President Tippett, is about 1 in 6 of our open enrollment students are staff students. So it is a great recruiting tool, a great benefit that we can offer our staff members. So it's a couple hundred, I think it's almost 200 students that their parents work for us, but they don't happen to live in our district.
Any other comments or questions? I think you covered it really well. I don't have any comments or questions, and I usually do. So, good job.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Mr. Early.
All right, next item on the agenda is community programs evaluation tool. This is also a study item. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Tippett and members of the board. Mrs. Bates is here to provide some background information regarding a new evaluation tool for our staff. Mrs. Bates.
Thank you, President Tippett, members of the board, and Mr. Caruth. Through support staff and leadership feedback within our Vail community programs, it became apparent that our current evaluation tool used for assessing community program staff was in need of an update to better reflect community programs' targets and values. This feedback prompted the formation of a dedicated committee, which included representatives from each of our employee groups within community programs. The committee held 2 meetings to evaluate each question on the existing evaluation tool. And the criteria that we used to evaluate the measures were, one was redundancy. Did the criteria feel redundant or was it repetitive questioning? The measurability, some of the questions weren't something that we could necessarily measure. And so we wanted to make sure that we could have some metrics around people's success. And then lastly, alignment to the various values that we have within our governing board policies, the ACT statement, and community programs expectations. Based on the review, the committee is proposing a revised evaluation tool. If it's approved, the evaluation tool would be used to evaluate staff in this current school year after the evaluation tool was approved. And the proposed changes will establish a more direct and transparent set of expectations, ensuring that the evaluation process is both fair and measurable. By doing so, we're striving to improve the effectiveness of staff evaluations and support the ongoing development of community programs team members. Attached in the governing board notes that you have are the following pieces of documentation. The revised evaluation tool that we are proposing, the evaluation user guide. One of the pieces of feedback from our leadership team was that there was too much subjectivity in terms of the interpretation of how to utilize the tool. And so the committee felt really strongly that we needed to identify what markers would make a performance evaluation outcome what it was going to be. And so you'll see that we're providing that guidance to our leadership team to create some clarity and fairness around that. And then also attached is an improvement plan tool so that we have, sometimes very few and far between. We have staff members who may not be meeting our expectations. And it was really important to me that we were transparent about what that improvement tool would look like, so that nobody was ever caught off guard about what their expectations would be. Additionally, coaching and mentorship is a critical part of making sure that staff can be successful. And so just showing them the ways in which we would support them to be successful if they were struggling, again, was an important point for me to make sure that we have included and that we were being transparent about. And then lastly, you'll just see a list of the amazing committee members that came together to create what's being proposed. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mrs. Spates.
Any comments or questions? Mrs. Pratt?
I just want to say how much I think this is awesome. I think that employees, everybody wants to be successful. So I love how transparent this is and really just laying out all expectations. So thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I really love the guidance given on how to use the tool so that it's evenly applied and gives the opportunity for fair evaluation for everybody. But it's really thorough. Thank you for being so thoughtful in that. Thank you. All right. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to the ASBA policy advisories. This is a study session.
Thank you, President. Different members of the board. Before you is a slate of policy advisories that are being recommended through ASBA policy services that are directly tied to changes in the law. So this is just updating some of those that we're vetting them. I've vetted them, and when necessary, we're looking using our own legal counsel to also go through them. Staff who have stake in these particular policies are also vetting them. So we're bringing them to you. This is really the review stage of this. While it's a study item, it's a review. And there's questions or anything that you have, you want us to go back and look at anything on these policies or others that we'll be bringing forward to you, happy to do that. I would also say this is a prelude to other policies that will be coming down over the next several board meetings. This is the first batch of a scientific slew of them to follow. So I think I spent a good 8 or 9 hours last week pouring through a whole bunch of them. So I'll just walk through them for point of reference on what they are and what the changes are. Obviously, I'm not going to go through the whole policy, only the changes that affects that particular policy. The first is policy BCB, which is board member conflict of interest. The fundamental issue of that is a legal change that describes that a governing board member can be employed with a school district in which they served as a board member, but only in the capacity, and this is what it's said, any person who has served as a member of the school district governing board during the preceding 2 years, and only in a position which that person provides service may do so only in a position which provides services directly to students. So fundamentally, it puts board members leave the board, want to come back. You have that 2-year gap, so to speak, before you can work for that respective school district. And you can do so at that point only as somebody who works directly with students. The other policy is many of these are directed at the board level, board organizational meeting. All that one really does is expands the window from for the board to call its annual organizational meeting from January 1 to January 15th to expand that to all of January. So just open it up. It's pretty straightforward. The policy BE, which is actual school board meetings, just states that schools board meetings where it is anticipated that the larger crowds are needing to be accommodated, that we take reasonable steps to provide
sufficient seating for that meeting. The policy and law also goes on to state that doesn't mean that you need to change the location of that meeting necessarily to do that. You can just do it in the largest room that you have available at the site with which you have. So that's what that is. Fundamentally for us, we've done that and moved sites to accommodate. So it doesn't prevent us from doing that either. It's just puts it into policy that we have to do that. The board policy BEDA is notification of board meetings, requires us to post as part of our posting of that meeting to include a time when the public will have physical access to the space where the public meeting will be held. So our board meeting, as an example, our board meeting is at 7. We will need to post the time at which public can have access to the boardroom. So that's that policy. Policy JFABDA deals with foster care, students who are in foster care. Fundamentally, well, as a practicality, it adjusts a couple of time limits on which students who are in foster care, a joint meeting must be held by those representatives who are associated with that child, both their caseworker, guardians, custodians, foster parent, representative from the school district, representative from the school of origin, wherever that kid is, but we must meet within a 5-day time period. With the determination that we are looking at what is the best interest of the child for where they're will be educated. That has been in policy, but is just putting a time frame around it. Also puts a time frame around when records are to be received by if the student changes schools, how fast those records need to be communicated. And it also codifies ensuring that transportation can be available. That's always been in place, but really puts some additional teeth into the Department of Child Safety, working with other local agencies to ensure that transportation is available. As a fundamental level, and pull up from kind of details of that, what this policy is really intended to do, and what the changes are looking to drive at, are when a child is in foster care, it recognizes that the stability of an educational environment should be of primary concern. So if their foster placement changes, it changes that physical location, there needs to be strong consideration around trying to provide stability with where that student is educated. So I think that's the flexibility on that.
Can I ask a question, Jens?
Sure.
So on this one, the transportation is on who? The department or the school district or the foster agency? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, thank you, Member Pratt. The issue is the change is that the child welfare agency, in this case DCS, needs to be involved in the coordination of that service. Yeah. The cost of that is to be determined through that negotiation. So as an example, if we have a student in Vail who enters the foster care system and that child's foster placement is outside of our school district, and it is determined by the team that is in the best interest for that child to remain in their school of origin, we would bear the cost of going to get that child. And we would work with them and go get that kid and bring them back. It could be the reverse. If the child were in another school district, in another school district, that district may arrange to come get the kid in our district and bring them back. It's not just district or school district transportation that's impacted. Sometimes that involves coordinating with public transportation. Sometimes it involves coordinating with private transportation carriers. And so what the law really does is say, hey, we need to remove what it used to be was, years ago, was pretty much all on the backs of districts to do. This is saying, doesn't matter who does it, just needs to be done. Groups figure it out and work towards an arrangement. That's fundamentally what the law
Got
it.
Thank you.
as a practical matter for us. I don't think this really changes that, doesn't change anything for us. The transportation issue doesn't change anything for us. We've done that for years.
Great, thank you.
And we don't have public transportation. So we're either looking at our own transportation staff doing that or making some arrangement with some kind of a private carrier.
Great, thank you.
The last set of policies, policy JK, JKD, and JKE, all have to do with updating the same language that runs through student discipline, student suspension, and expulsion of students. And that has to do with suspension or expulsion of very young students in kindergarten through fourth grade. If you remember previous legislative session, they said you can't suspend or expel kids in those grade levels. They came back and said, that's probably not a practical thing to do, especially if somebody in that age range has an offense that would rise to the level of an expulsion, like bringing a weapon or having some severe violent behavior. So creates the condition where expulsion can be considered if it meets certain thresholds for expulsion. And it also states that we can suspend a student in that grade band from kindergarten to second grade, not to exceed 2 days at a time and not to exceed an aggregate of 10 days over a school year. So that really is helpful. It's not our practice to want to suspend young children. That is not the first thing we do by any means. We work to try and keep them in school, but sometimes it is helpful to gather the attention of all parties involved and have a short-term removal. So that allows our particular elementary schools to do that. And again, that language just runs through those 3 particular policies. So that's a summary of the changes that are proposed in the 9 policies that are before you this evening. Again, our intent is to have you have an opportunity to review them. If you have questions or any feedback, happy to answer those and or look into it. It'd be our intent to bring these back as a slate for action at our next board meeting. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions on the presentation? Mr. King, I thought I saw you wondering about something. Okay. Thanks for walking through those policies with us. I don't have any questions about everything. As we watched legislation form, we all knew these things were coming. So it's necessary that we respond. And this is just a presentation item for tonight, so there's no action on that, which means it'll come back at our next board meeting for action. And so we'll go ahead and move on unless anybody else has any comments or questions.
Madam President, if I could ask Mr. Caruth in regards to, do we see anything that potentially is contentious locally or up to the state level?
Thank you, President Tippett. Member Buster, are you speaking in regard to these 9 or
just the 9?
No, I don't. Okay. Yeah. These particular ones are pretty perfunctory.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
All right, I'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is adjournment. I'll accept a motion.
I'll motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Anderson's ready to go. Mrs. Press, second. I'll call for the question. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Thank you, everybody.